guys, I am back with the third video of the video series on class 7 science nutrition in plants, and in this video we are going to learn about heterotrophic nutrition in plants. While we talk about heterotrophic nutrition, we will also touch upon a very important topic both from understanding perspective as well as exam perspective, and that is symbiosis. So please watch this video till the end because we are going to cover this topic on symbiosis towards the end of the video. So let's get started. So some plants depend on other plants or animals for their food. So they are not self-dependent. Now why they are not self-dependent? Maybe because they cannot perform photosynthesis. So if they can't perform photosynthesis, they will not be able to prepare their own food. So in that case, they will either feed on some other plants or they will feed on some other animals. Like I gave you example of insectivorous plants. So some plants feed on insects also. So that means these heterotrophic plants will depend on other plants or animals for their food. They lack chlorophyll because when they lack chlorophyll, they will not be able to, there will be no photosynthesis. When there is no photosynthesis, so obviously the plants cannot prepare their own food. So they are heterotrophic. So in heterotrophic nutrition, let us first talk about the parasitic plants. So what are because in heterotrophic again you have many different types. One can be parasitic nutrition, one could be saprotrophic nutrition. So again we will discuss about each of them. So we start with parasitic plants. So these are the plants which take nutrients from another living plant. So they depend on some other plant. So basically these plants, they live inside the body of another plant. Like I gave you while trying to explain the term parasite, I think the best example that I can give you is that of a worm which lives inside the human body. So a lot of worms or tiny creatures live inside our intestine. So they obtain their food and nutrition from our body. So they basically are parasites because they live inside our body and obtain their nutrition from our body. So similarly, there are certain plants which live on other plants and obtain their nutrition from that plants. So such plants are called parasites. So these plants which live on other plants, they are called parasite. And the plant on which they depend for their food, this plant is called host. So host is that plant where this parasite is living. So let me give you a very common example of, so let us take one very common example of a parasitic plant, and that is dodder or cuscuta. So both are the same plant. So cuscuta or dodder. So here you can see these plants, these yellow colored plants, very thin leafless vines which you see here, they are these parasitic plants. Now can you tell me why are they yellow in color and not green? Exactly, due to lack of chlorophyll. Now since they do not have chlorophyll, they cannot perform photosynthesis and they cannot prepare their food. So these plants, they depend on some other plants. So here you see this cuscuta are the yellow plants and they are actually living on some other plants which are green in color. So this host plant, so basically this green plant is the host. So this host plant is going to perform photosynthesis, prepare its food, and the cuscuta is going to obtain its food from the host plant. So how is it going to obtain its food? These plants have root-like organs that penetrate into the stems of the host plant, and through those root-like organs they derive water and all other nutrients from the host. So these plants, especially the dodder, they do not have chlorophyll. In fact, even if they have very little chlorophyll, which is not enough for photosynthesis. So this is one example of a parasitic plant. Another example is the Australian Christmas tree. So this is called Australian Christmas tree because of its appearance. That is how they look like. So these plants are also called Nightshade. So that is also another name of the same plant. So these plants are equipped with green leaves. So if you look at these plants, they have green leaves. So that means they have chlorophyll. So they can photosynthesize and provide its own nutrition. But that means they are capable of photosynthesis, they can prepare their own food, but still they maintain parasitic root connections with other plants to exploit their water supplies and obtain water from them. So these plants are like, even though they are capable of preparing their own food, they still want to steal food from other plants. So that is how they are. Now since they are stealing food from other plants, again through their root connections, so that means they are parasite. So you see, in the first example, in this example, these plants, they do not have a choice than depending on other plants because they can't prepare their own food. But in the second example, even though they are capable of preparing their own food, but still they also try to obtain food from other plants. So both of these are examples of parasitic plants. The next plants which we will talk about are the insectivorous plants. The name itself says that these plants feed on insects. So here the leaves are modified into structures that help to trap insects. So for the best example for insectivorous plant is the pitcher plant. So in pitcher plant, if you see, the leaf is modified into a structure which looks like a pitcher. So you see, it's like a jar, a pitcher with a lid. So you see, this acts as the lid and this is like a pitcher. So that's how that's the beauty of nature. So these plants, in these plants, their leaves are modified into these structures. Now what happens is, these leaves act as a prey trapping mechanism. They act as insect trapping mechanisms. Now what happens is, whenever an insect comes near this pitcher, there is a deep cavity inside. Now inside this pitcher is present a lot of digestive juices and all. So once the insect falls into this pitcher, then those digestive fluids actually help in digesting that insect. Like whenever we eat something, the digestion happens inside our body because of the various digestive enzymes which are present inside our body. Similarly, inside this pitcher, a lot of digestive fluids are present. So as soon as the insect falls inside the pitcher, the insect gets digested by these fluids. Now as soon as the insect comes near this pitcher, the rim of the pitcher is extremely slippery. So this part is very slippery, and that is why as soon as the insect sits here, the insect slips inside. So the insects fall into the trap, and as soon as the insects fall inside, the lid closes, and that's how the insect gets digested inside. So there are also some hair-like structures which are present here on the rim, and these hair-like structures actually help to bring the insects inside. So the liquid inside the pitcher drones the insect and gradually dissolves the insect inside, and the insect gets digested. So that is how these insectivorous plants work. So here also you see they depend on other insects, but at the same time these plants, they also have chlorophyll and they can also photosynthesize. But this is an alternative mode of nutrition. So they are autotrophic, but at the same time they are heterotrophic also because they depend on other organisms like other insects. So this is about the insectivorous plant. Now we are going to talk about the saprotrophs or the saprotrophic nutrition. What does the word sapro means? So sapro means something which is dead or decayed. So anything dead and decayed. So these organisms obtain their food from dead and decaying organisms. So the dead bodies are being eaten by these saprotrophs. Now those plants which have saprotrophic mode of nutrition, they are called saprotrophs. So they feed on dead plants or dead animals. So the best example of saprotrophs are the fungi. So when you think of fungi, can you remember any example of fungi? So the best example that you can relate to are the mushrooms. I think you would have eaten mushroom also in a lot of dishes. So mushrooms are nothing but fungi. So these mushrooms, they feed on dead and decaying matter. So let's see, where do we commonly see fungi? because when we talk about plants, you can relate to the plants because they are like big trees and flowers, fruits, etc. So you can relate to them. But when we think of fungi, many of you might think that I have never seen a fungi. So let me tell you, where would you have seen it? So have you ever seen a rotten tomato? So if you keep a tomato not inside the refrigerator, outside for a couple of days, maybe for some 10-15 days, so what happens? Gradually the tomato, initially it will be like slightly greenish in color, then it will ripen and it will become red in color, then gradually it will start becoming soft, then it will become very soft, and then it will start to decay, it will start rotting. Now, what do we mean by decaying or rotting? Now, what actually happens is, if you actually use a microscope and look at it very closely, you will see that there are some organisms which have developed on the rotten tomato, and those organisms are nothing but fungi. So not only that, if you would have ever seen a rotten bread, so there also you can see a layer of kind of you can say a cotton-like appearance on the surface of the bread. So that is also nothing but they are also fungi. So you look at any rotten thing, you will be able to see fungi. For example, when you see molds on in this picture you can see molds on a rotten orange. So you see the greenish layer which is actually getting formed, that is due to the growth of molds. So molds, yeast, these are all examples of fungi. Now, some of the common characteristics of fungi. So here in this picture you can actually see the fungi on bread. So now I hope that all of you would not say that you have never seen a fungi. I am sure you would have seen fungi in one of these cases. So these fungi, they are multicellular organisms, that is, they are made up of many cells inside their body. Now most of the fungi are multicellular, the only exception is yeast. Now we will not get into the detail of each and every fungi, so I just want to give you some idea about what are fungi. They are heterotrophic, they depend on others for their food, obviously, even though, now heterotrophic, that means they cannot prepare their own food. And now how do they depend on others for their food? They depend on dead organisms. So that is why they are called saprotrophs. They prefer warm and moist places to grow. In fact, that is the reason why you would not see fungi growing on a bread if you keep it inside the refrigerator, because inside the refrigerator it's very cold, so that temperature doesn't favor the growth of fungi. But if you keep it outside, the temperature is warm, there is presence of moisture in the atmosphere, so it is like a suitable place for fungi to grow. Found in air, water, soil, animals, plants, so they are actually found in a lot of places. Now when we talk about, here we are going to mainly talk about the nutrition of fungi. Now these fungi, they can be saprotrophic, some of them are saprotrophic, while some other fungi are parasitic also. So some of them are saprotrophic, which we are going to discuss in detail right now. However, some of them can also be parasitic. How parasitic? Now some fungi can actually live inside the body of another plant or animal and cause diseases in them. So you would have seen that in human beings also there are a lot of fungal diseases, especially skin infections in human beings are very common. So what is that? That is nothing but fungi living in the body of human beings and causing harm to human beings, and it is getting its nutrition from the human body. So that ways fungi are parasitic also. So some fungi are parasitic, some fungi are saprotrophic. They are immobile, they cannot move from one place to another like other animals. So now we will talk about the nutrition. So as I said, they have heterotrophic nutrition, they depend on others for their food. Some of them are saprophytes, that is, they feed on dead and decomposed matter. The examples which I mentioned before, for example, the mold on the orange or the fungi which develops on the bread, mushrooms. So these are all saprophytes. They have a saprophytic mode of nutrition. However, some of them can be parasitic as well. That is, they might depend on other living plants or animals and can even cause disease in them. So some examples are given on this picture. So here you see this animal is suffering from a fungal disease. Similarly, in this case, in the plant, it has developed a fungal disease. So it is capable of causing diseases in plants and animals. And how it causes diseases? By living inside the body of that plant or animal. Some fungi also exist in symbiotic relationship with other organisms. Now this is again a new term for you. Now, this is symbiotic relationship. It is a special type of relationship where a fungi lives inside the body of another organism. The fungi will derive some benefit from that organism, and the organism will also derive some benefit from the fungi. So it is like a mutual benefit relationship. So this is a mutual benefit relationship, and symbiosis is a very common type of relationship which is seen in case of fungi. Talk a little more about symbiosis. So it is an association between two or more species where one or both are mutually benefited. So for example, in this case, if you look at this example here, now it is not necessary that symbiosis happens only in case of fungi. Now fungi also exhibit symbiotic relationship, but there are other organisms which also show symbiotic relationship. So here on the screen you can see a bee and a flower. So in this case, there is a symbiotic relationship between the bee and the flower. Why? Because the bee is obtaining its food from the flower. It is obtaining the pollen from the flower. So that is how the bee is getting benefited. It is getting its food from the flower. What about the flower? The flower is getting pollinated by this bee. So if you know what is pollination, pollination is nothing but I'll not get into the detail. You can just think that it is a step in the process of sexual reproduction of plants. So this bee helps in the process of pollination, and that's how it helps in sexual reproduction of flowers. So in this case, both the bee as well as the flower, both of them get benefited. So this is an example of symbiosis. So let us look at other symbiotic examples. So let us look at this example of the buffalo and the crow. So what kind of relationship exists here? Do you think both of them are getting benefited? So look at this interesting example. So here the crows which are sitting on the buffalo, do you know what are they doing? They are just eating up the tiny ants and aphids which might be present on the skin of the buffalo. So the buffalo skin is generally very untidy, and you see a lot of insects on the skin of the buffalo. So these crows, they are eating those tiny insects and ants, and that's how they are getting their food. Now what about the buffalo? So the buffalo is also getting benefited because somebody is cleaning up its body of insects and other things. So that ways the buffalo is benefited that somebody is eating up the ants on its body, and the crow is benefited because it is getting something to eat. So again, this is an example of symbiosis. Another example, the same example which I told you in the last slide, a flowering plant and the pollinators, that is the bee. So the bee acts as a pollinator because it helps in the process of pollination for this flowering plant. And this plant, it provides nutrition. It provides food to the bee. Right? So again, both of them are being benefited. You take examples of human beings and their domesticated animals. So domesticated animals, they get their food, all care from human beings. At the same time, they also do a lot of stuff for human beings. For example, if you think of a dog is very faithful to his master. So they also do a lot of stuff. So these kind of relationship where you have mutual benefit. Now, it is not always necessary that the benefit has to be mutual, because when you look at, in fact, when I defined symbiosis, I clearly mentioned that it is an association where one or both the organisms are benefited. So, if you look at this example, the lice present in the hair. So, in this case, the lice feeds on the blood from the hair. So, the lice actually takes in nutrition from our head. But is our head getting benefited in any way? Not really. So in this case, just one of them is getting benefited, but still this is an example of symbiosis. Think of the worms and the insects which might live inside our intestine. So these worms, they take their nutrition from our body. Now some of them might even cause diseases in our body, so they might even harm us, but some of them might not harm us. So they are also symbiotic relationship. Now comes the example of fungi. So this is a very popular symbiotic relationship between fungi and algae, and this is called lichen. So lichen is the name given to the symbiotic relationship between algae and fungi. Now what are algae? Now have you ever seen a pond with a green grass-like layer on its surface? I'm sure you would have seen it. So that green colored surface is formed of algae. So algae are like plant-like structures, but they are not exactly plants, but they are like, they are generally seen on wet surfaces, very tiny, very small, spongy structure, grass-like appearance. So they are the algae. So this lichen is a symbiotic relationship between the algae and the fungi, and in this relationship both algae and fungi are dependent on each other and they cannot live on their own. So they are totally dependent on each other for their survival, and mostly you will be able to see these lichens as green colored patches on the bark of trees. So as you see here, so on the bark of the trees you see these green colored structures. So that is nothing but the lichen. So how they help each other? Now algae, they contain chlorophyll. So they are green colored chlorophyll containing organisms. So that's why they can perform photosynthesis. So algae performs photosynthesis and it provides food for fungi as well. So the fungi is getting benefited because algae can perform photosynthesis. But how is the algae getting benefited? Now the fungi protects the algae from drying in the sun. How? By protecting it from sunlight, by enclosing it within their body. So basically the algae is like wrapped inside by the fungi. So the fungi offers protection. So fungi provides protection to the algae and the algae provides food to the fungi, and both of them cannot survive without each other, because if the fungi doesn't get food, so the fungi will not live. If the fungi doesn't exist, the algae will dry up in the sun because there is nobody to protect it. So that ways they both are dependent on each other, and this is one of the most popular example of symbiotic relationship. So lichen, so that is why I told you that there are many different ways by which fungi obtain their food. Now some fungi are saprotrophic, that is they feed on dead and decayed organisms. Some fungi are parasitic, they live inside body of some plants or animals and cause diseases. Some fungi are symbiotic, that is they live in a mutually benefiting association with algae, and that's how they derive their food from algae. So these are the various ways by which fungi obtain their nutrition. Now since fungi was a new term for you, so we have discussed a lot of things about fungi. So now let us see some of the importance of fungi. I mean, how fungi is important, where can they be used? So they help in decomposition of organic waste. Why? Because they feed on dead and decaying matter. So that ways they can actually help the environment get rid of dead bodies. Right? Because it will help in the decomposition of dead bodies, and it will provide the nutrients and the minerals back to the soil, which can be utilized for the plants for their growth and development. Valuable in plastic industry, in the manufacture of plastics also they play a very important role. Valuable in obtaining drugs like penicillin. In fact, the drug penicillin, which is an antibiotic. So antibiotics are extremely important because they help to fight the bacterial infection. Any infection caused by bacteria can be cured by these kind of antibiotics. So penicillin was the first antibiotic and it was derived from a fungi. Play an important role in the baking industry, whether you prepare a cake, whether you bake a bread. So everywhere you would need the help of fungi. So it also helps in the baking industry. So these are some of the places where fungi plays a very important role. So you should know that fungi is nothing to be ignored or neglected, because they play very important roles in our day-to-day life.
I hope you found the video useful, and our next video is all about questions for practice, and these practice questions are from this lesson, Nutrition in Plants. So stay tuned.